The silverware clinked like warning bells. Not loud enough to startle anyone, just steady, polite, like betrayal learning its rhythm. My mother's antique dining table gleamed under the chandelier, every reflection catching fragments of faces I used to trust. My husband, Daniel, sat at the head of the table, slicing roast beef with surgical calm. My brother, Ethan, swirled his wine, smirking. And my mother, immaculate in pearls and control, watched me as if I were a chess piece finally cornered. I should have known something was coming. The air itself felt wrong, thick with unspoken plotting. Daniel cleared his throat, voice smooth and falsely warm. So we're all agreed. This makes sense. His words landed like a blade. What makes sense? I asked. My mother didn't look at me. Darling, the house. It's far too much for you to handle alone. Ethan thinks. If you what? My voice cracked through the room, sharp and trembling. Ethan laughed softly, condescending. It's not like that, Claire. We're just trying to help. We. I repeated, my heart tightening. Daniel reached for my hand, the same one he'd slipped a ring onto 10 years ago. Babe, calm down. No one's taking anything from you. We're just being practical. My fork stilled halfway to my mouth. Practical. That's what people say before they steal. This is my home, I said quietly. And it'll always be, my mother interrupted smoothly. We're just reorganizing things. After your father's passing, it's been. Don't. I pushed my plate away. Don't use him as leverage. Her eyes flashed. We're trying to protect you, Claire. Protect me from what? I demanded. Daniel's expression softened into that mask he wore when manipulating me. Honey, you've been fragile. Your father's death hit you hard. The estate's complicated and fragile. I whispered. The word burned. You think I'm fragile? No one answered. The silence was louder than truth. Something inside me began to shift, quiet but unstoppable. A realization, a spark. The roast on the table smelled like rosemary and deceit. Their laughter was smoke. Their eyes flickered with rehearsed sympathy. And underneath it all, unity. They'd planned this. Together. I thought back to the morning I caught Daniel whispering on the phone, his voice low and urgent. The lunch where my mother's lawyer called her partner. Ethan suddenly dropping by every day talking about legacy. I'd ignored every warning sign because it was easier to believe in love than in conspiracy. But sitting there I finally saw it. The inheritance. The title deed. My father's house. They were dividing me like property, and doing it with wine glasses raised. I forced myself to breathe evenly. Losing control now would give them exactly what they wanted, the hysterical, unstable woman narrative. I smiled instead. When exactly were you planning to tell me about this decision? Daniel blinked, feigning innocence. We're just discussing, babe. You're overreacting. Overreacting. Another word meant to silence women. Funny, I said softly. I don't remember inviting you all to a board meeting in my dining room. Ethan's smirk faltered. Claire, don't make this ugly. Oh, it's already ugly, I said. You're just pretending it's business casual. The tension in the room thickened until it felt like breathing smoke. My mother sighed theatrically. Darling, your father would never want us fighting like this. I met her eyes. My father would never sell his daughter's home behind her back. For a moment her mask cracked. Just a flicker of guilt, or maybe annoyance that I'd noticed. I stood, my chair scraping against the floor. I wanted to scream, to throw something to shatter the illusion of civility. But instead I gathered every ounce of composure and said, You're right. Maybe I'm not thinking clearly tonight. Let's continue this conversation next Sunday. Daniel's shoulders relaxed. He mistook surrender for acceptance. That's my girl. I smiled even as something cold and electric coiled in my chest. Yes, your girl. Then I turned, walking out of the dining room with steady steps. The walls seemed to hum with whispers, portraits of ancestors watching me like witnesses to an old betrayal repeating itself. As I reached the staircase, I heard my mother's voice behind me, low and smug. See? I told you she'd come around. I didn't stop. I didn't look back. Because while they toasted their little victory, I was already plotting their downfall. By next Sunday, they'd learn what it meant to corner the wrong woman. By Monday morning, the shock had congealed into something sharper, clarity. I didn't cry. Not once. I made coffee, fed my cat, and sat in the study my father once ruled from, where the faint scent of cedar and old paper clung to every drawer. This was his domain: precision, discipline, foresight. And now it would become mine. The first thing I did was pull out the deed. The house wasn't the estate as they called it. It was mine, signed over in full by my father years before he died. I traced the ink with my fingers, breathing in the comfort of proof. It wasn't just a home anymore, it was my shield. My phone buzzed, Daniel's text. "Sorry about last night. Everyone's just stressed. Let's talk tonight." I didn't reply. I didn't need to, because I'd already made my first call of the day, to Mr. Laird, my father's retired attorney, who'd been a fixture of my childhood like the grandfather clock in the hallway. He answered on the second ring, his gravelly voice steady. "Claire? I was wondering when I'd hear from you again." I told him everything. The dinner. The words. The smirks. The signatures they were planning to forge. When I finished, there was a long silence. Then a soft chuckle. "Your father would have smiled hearing this," he said. "They think you're weak. That's good. Let them." Within hours, Mr. Laird had connected me with 3 attorneys from his old firm, women who didn't blink at the words family fraud. We met that evening in my sunroom, the glass walls reflecting a dying sunset. Their names were Ava, Lila, and June, sharp minds wrapped in quiet elegance. They listened without interruption as I laid out everything. When I finished, Ava leaned forward, her tone clinical but electric. "You have them cornered, Claire. Every one of them." I wanted to feel relief, but what I felt instead was something colder: vindication, maybe. Or rebirth. We began digging. By Tuesday, Lila had found bank records showing Daniel had been siphoning small amounts, hundreds at first, then thousands, from our joint account into an investment account under Ethan's company name. Paper trails that screamed coordination. By Wednesday, June had traced the paperwork for a trust modification, filed under my mother's name. An attempt to reclassify my property as part of the family estate. It wasn't filed yet, just drafted. But it told me everything I needed to know. They were planning to strip me out of ownership, inch by inch. When Ava handed me the printouts, I stared at them for a long time. They planned this for months. Ava's expression didn't soften, and they expected you to smile through it. That night I couldn't sleep. The clock ticked loud in the dark, every sound reminding me that time was moving fast. I replayed every conversation I'd ignored. The way Daniel called my mother before making financial decisions, the patronizing tone Ethan used when advising me, the careful phrasing they used around me. "You don't have to worry about that, Claire. We'll handle it for you." They had been rehearsing this betrayal long before my father's funeral dirt had settled. But now I was rehearsing something else. By Thursday, I turned the study into a war room. Charts, documents, recordings. The women worked from my house, silent except for the occasional clatter of keyboards. I had started recording conversations with Daniel on my phone. Every word, every sigh, every deflection. That evening he came home smiling, holding takeout from my favorite Thai place. As if peace offerings could erase poison. "Hey," he said softly. "Truce." I looked at the food. "You didn't cook?" He laughed. "Come on, I'm trying here. I know we got off on the wrong foot." I stared at him, wondering how many versions of himself he'd rehearsed before walking through that door. "Wrong foot implies an accident, Daniel." He frowned. "You think I'm the enemy now?" "I don't think anything," I said coolly. "I know." For the briefest second, his jaw tightened, then relaxed into a grin. "You're emotional. You always get like this when money's involved." "Money's never what it's about," I said. "It's about loyalty." He sighed, setting the bags down. "Claire, you're making this harder than it has to be." That sentence echoed through me long after he left the room. "You're making this harder than it has to be." Like betrayal was a negotiation. Like I had agreed to play the victim. By Friday morning I wasn't playing anymore. The motions had been filed. Preliminary injunctions freezing any shared assets, pending review. My attorney had served notice of investigation for financial abuse and coercion. And I'd recorded Daniel's confession that everyone thought selling the house was the logical step. Each piece clicked into place like a carefully tuned clock. That afternoon, the sun bled orange through the blinds as Ava turned to me. We'll make the reveal public, correct? Yes. I poured myself coffee. Same table, same faces, same Sunday. Lila smiled. Bold. Necessary, I said. They took my grief for weakness. I want them to learn the difference. That night I drafted the invitation. A polite message, almost warm. Dinner again this Sunday? Let's discuss the house properly. No tension this time. Just family. They all agreed. Of course they did. To them it was victory round 2. But I wasn't the same woman who'd left that table last week. I wasn't fragile. I wasn't naive. I was my father's daughter, and I had his ruthlessness humming in my blood. Saturday passed quietly. The calm before detonation. I went through the house, touching walls, the banister, my father's chair, memorizing every piece of the world they tried to steal. In the evening I stood in the mirror. My reflection looked different, colder, steadier. My father once told me that strength doesn't roar. It calculates. It waits. By midnight I had everything ready. Documentation printed and sealed, the legal team briefed. They would wait in the kitchen next door, silent until the moment I gave the word. As I turned off the lights, the house felt alive again, not as a possession, but as a weapon sharpened in silence. And for the first time all week I smiled, because tomorrow night I wouldn't be defending my home. I'd be reclaiming it. The house looked almost identical to last Sunday. The same table, the same crystal glasses, the same smell of rosemary and garlic weaving through the air. But tonight the walls felt different, charged, aware. As if the house itself was waiting to witness the reckoning. I stood at the window watching headlights carve slow patterns across the driveway. First Daniel's car. Then Ethan's. Then my mother's sleek black sedan, pulling up with calculated grace. They arrived in staggered order, like players returning to a stage they believed they still owned. My heart didn't race this time. There was no tremor in my fingers, no lump in my throat. Only quiet anticipation. The kind you feel before pressing a detonator. Daniel kissed my cheek when he entered. You look beautiful, babe. I smiled faintly. You always say that when you're guilty. He froze, but before he could reply, my mother swept in, perfume sharp as her tone. Let's not start with tension, darling. We're here to talk calmly this time. Ethan followed with his practiced grin. Yeah, let's get through this before dessert. All right? I gestured toward the dining room. After you. They took their seats, the same ones they'd occupied last week. It almost felt ceremonial, like betrayal reenacted. The air shimmered with memory and deceit. I poured wine, filling each glass to the brim. To family, I said softly. Daniel raised his glass. To compromise. To victory, Ethan muttered. To honesty, my mother said with a smile that could slice glass. I didn't drink. Instead, I let the silence stretch, every second pulling tighter until Daniel shifted in his chair. So, he said, voice forced casual, about the house. Yes, I interrupted gently. Let's discuss that. But first, I'd like to introduce a few guests. Ethan frowned. Guests. Before anyone could speak, I turned toward the hallway and said, You can come in now. 4 women entered, poised and silent. Ava, Lila, June, and Mr. Laird himself. Their presence was a seismic shift. The air thickened, the tension nearly visible. My mother's jaw dropped. Claire, she hissed. What is this? My legal team, I said calmly. They've been in the kitchen since we began dinner. Daniel rose halfway from his chair. You brought lawyers here? Of course, I said. Last Sunday you all decided to divide my home. This Sunday I thought we could divide the truth. Ava stepped forward, placing a thick folder in front of each of them. You are all named in ongoing civil proceedings concerning fraudulent misrepresentation, coercion, and unauthorized financial transactions. Consider these formal notifications. Ethan pushed his chair back, laughing, but the sound came out strained. This is ridiculous. I looked at him evenly. Then by all means read. My mother flipped open her folder. Her hand trembled as she scanned the documents, screenshots, emails, bank records. Her face drained of color. Where did you get this? From you, I said softly. From your carelessness. From years of underestimating me. Daniel's voice broke through, low and angry. You bugged me, Claire. You spied on your own husband. I met his gaze. You stole from your own wife. He slammed his palm on the table, the glasses rattling. You think this makes you righteous? This is insane. No, I said quietly. This is legal. The silence that followed was deafening. The tick of the grandfather clock echoed like a heartbeat through the room. Ava leaned forward, her voice smooth as glass. Mr. Wallace, we have documented evidence of your transfers into accounts under Mr. Reed's business name. We've also secured audio recordings confirming your intent to alter property rights without Ms. Wallace's consent. Those are felonies under Section. Stop, my mother snapped. We can settle this privately. I turned to her, finally letting the steel in my voice rise. You mean quietly? You've done everything quietly, haven't you, Mother? My father's will? The way you rewrote family history to make yourself the victim? You expected me to play along. To smile and surrender. Her expression flickered, shock, then fury, then something like shame. This isn't what your father would have wanted, she whispered. For the first time I laughed. It wasn't cruel. It was broken, healed, whole again. My father would have wanted me to protect what's his. And what's his is mine. Ethan stood abruptly, his voice sharp. This is going too far, Claire. You're dragging family through mud for what? Pride. Pride. I repeated. No, Ethan. For justice. For every woman who's been told she's too emotional to understand her own finances. For every daughter whose mother decided she wasn't competent enough to inherit. Daniel's face twisted with disbelief. You're blowing up everything. You'll ruin us. You did that yourselves, I said. Ava gathered her folders, closing them with finality. We're done here. You'll be hearing from us by morning. As they stood, my mother's composure cracked completely. Claire, you're destroying this family. I met her gaze. No, Mother. I'm saving myself from it. The words landed like a verdict. For a long moment no one moved. Daniel's breathing was ragged, Ethan's hands clenched, my mother's eyes glassy with disbelief. The entire scene felt frozen like a painting mid-collapse. I stepped back from the table. You wanted this house divided, I said softly. Well, now it's divided. You three on one side. Me and the law on the other. Then I turned and walked out. The night air hit me like freedom. Cool, sharp, alive. I stepped onto the porch, exhaling for what felt like the first time in months. Behind me voices rose, panic, anger, pleading. But they were only echoes now, fading inside walls that belonged to me. Ava joined me a moment later, quiet and composed. They won't recover from this easily, she said. I don't need them to, I replied. Do you feel satisfied? I thought for a moment. Satisfaction wasn't the right word. What I felt was restored. Like something that had been hollowed out of me was finally filled again. Not with revenge, but with truth. Inside, I could hear Daniel arguing with my mother. Ethan's voice cracked into curses. For the first time, I didn't care. This house feels different tonight, I murmured. Ava smiled. It should. You reclaimed it. After they left, I stood alone in the doorway. The chandeliers glowed soft above me, reflecting on polished floors that no longer felt tainted. The dining table stood in perfect order. An empty battlefield. I gathered the untouched wine glasses one by one and placed them in the sink. As the water ran, I felt something shift, an almost sacred silence filling the house. The kind that comes after truth has been spoken. Then I walked to my father's study, sat in his old chair, and opened a blank page in his ledger. I wrote, "Tonight they tried to divide my home again. This time I divided them." I closed the book gently. Outside, the garden lights shimmered across the lawn, and for a brief moment, I could almost feel him there. My father, proud and quiet, watching. I whispered into the stillness, "It's safe now, Dad. You don't have to worry anymore." The house seemed to exhale with me. I poured myself a small glass of wine, walked back to the dining room, and looked at the empty chairs. Each one was a ghost of a lie that no longer lived here. And for the first time in years I sat down, not as a daughter or wife or sister, but as the rightful owner of my peace. The clock struck midnight. Justice had been served.